will be completely Randall's claim. He proposed that bans on assault rifles will fail to reduce homicides. His three supporting claims were that first, bans on assault in the past have failed to reduce gun violence. Second, that the majority of public mass shootings in the U.S. have taken place in gun-free areas. And third claim that 22% of crimes committed were committed by the offender wielding a weapon. His first claim that gun laws in the past have failed to reduce gun violence does not give any examples or how much it had to do with the use of assault rifles. He supports his point with the example of the Firearms Control Regulations Act of 1975, stating how homicides rose from 188 to 364 in the year 1976. The evidence, although it's true, does not provide any evidence of how many of these homicides had to do with an assault rifle being used. The information is from a broad range of guns such as handguns, not just assault rifles. In a study conducted by a research group at the University of Maryland and the University of Albany, examined suicides and homicides in the District of Columbia, suggested that restrictions on access to assault weapons in the District of Columbia prevented an average of 47 deaths each year after the law was implemented. Although homicide may have risen, evidence shows that the law indeed reduced the crimes committed with an assault weapon. The advocate's second claim is that mass shootings in the United States have taken place in gun-free areas. The information is not relevant to his claim and makes no connection of how gun-free areas such as schools have anything to do with bans on assault rifles. He fails to mention whether or not the assault rifles used in school shootings were banned or not. He goes on to use evidence from researchers from the University of Chicago and Crime Prevention Center that state that the right to carry laws reduce the frequency of public mass shootings. One of the biggest problems with this evidence is that it came from 1999. In a more recent 2015 study, using data from the FBI, the Children's and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, researchers at Boston Children's Hospital and Harvard University reported that firearm assaults were 6.8 times more common in states with the most guns than versus those with the least. This goes to this clearly evidence from 19 years ago. The more guns, the safer and less likely mass shootings were to occur. The advocate's last claim is that 22% of all violent crimes were committed by an offender wielding a weapon, and of that 8% involved a firearm. This last claim is not really stated as a claim, but rather a fact, and is irrelevant to the claim overall. There is no evidence that this 8% of violence came from an assault rifle being used, or that the study was done in a location where the assault rifles were banned, or how much of the 8% resulted in homicides. It does not support his claim at all and gives no reason as to why it is important. In conclusion, the advocate fails to fully do research in his first claim that the Firearm Regulations Act increased homicide due to assault weapons, because in reality, the homicides decreased. His second claim is outdated with information from 19 years ago, and his last claim is not stated as a claim and irrelevant to this claim overall. Thank you.
Okay, you previewed the structure of the advocate's argument pretty clearly. On your first point, your argument suggests that statistically they're correct that they had more homicides after the ban, but then you said, but it's not specific to assault rifles, which I thought, well, okay, well, why is that press important? And then you follow that up with a piece of information that suggests had an assault rifle ban been in place, there would have been 47 fewer deaths. Well, it's a little unclear to me about the DC area if there was a gun ban, where assault rifles exempt from that, and as a result, that's where that data came from. I think it's good that you've got a good, a piece of information here that seems to apply directly to the advocate's claim. But to be convincing, it seems like it's going to need more information, and how they reach the inference that there would have been 47 fewer deaths when the gun violence went up, despite the fact that there was a ban, that's confusing. And I think if you're going to trust that evidence, you're going to have to make it a little bit more clear to us how they have arrived at that conclusion and try to make it more convincing and acceptable. The argument about the gun-free zones being irrelevant, I kind of understand the press that you're making there. I think the better argument that you're making is that the evidence that the advocate uses is outdated. It's 17 or 18 years old, and that a more recent study found that there was a difference if we had control over those kinds of firearms. I think that works a little bit better. Actually, the data that you have simply suggests a correlation between the states with the highest number of guns versus states with lower numbers of guns. So that's a more generic piece of information. It's not specific to the assault rifle issue, but it does address the generic point that's being presented there. So I thought that's a good press and I think a reasonable piece of counter evidence. On the third point, I didn't understand what the advocate's claim was based on your summary. I don't understand what your argument is based on the way you've presented it. It just sounds to me like the argument here is that we don't know what the impact would be. I think one of the things that you could come down on is you could argue the likelihood is that less guns means less violence as opposed to more guns means less violence. That's kind of the premise of the advocate's argument. And you maybe give us some criteria for evaluating or comparing the two sides. I just was confused about what was being said by this 8% statistic in either direction, and that doesn't really help very much. All right, thank you.